New Brunswick, and welcome to Voice of the Province. I'm Mike Gange, and our guest tonight is Jake Stewart, the MLA, member of the Legislative Assembly for the Blackville area. Jake, it's great to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have an opportunity for you to phone in and have your comments, and you can reach us very shortly. The number will be on the bottom of the screen. So Jake, welcome. It's nice to have you here. You're just a young guy. How did you get involved in politics?
Well, Mike, it's good to be here. I'm 38 years old and got into politics. I was in recreation first, working for the rec council, just mostly volunteering. Ended up running for council, and not long after becoming a municipal councillor, there was an interest for me to run provincially, and it seemed like, foreign to me. But I looked into it and had some great supporters, and managed to win the first time, and I'm still here.
Well, good for you. Yeah. Do you have any heroes then that were people that inspired you, but politicians that may have said, my son, this is the way to go?
Well, Abraham Lincoln is one of my favorites, and I'll tell you. No, I'll be honest with you. I read a book called The Value of Respect when I was in grade 4 and absolutely loved it. Didn't know a lot about...
I thought you were teasing me, really.
No, I'm not teasing you. Abraham Lincoln would be my favorite, one of my favorites all time.
Right.
And in terms of Canadian politics, when I was a boy, the vertical on my television, my grandfather's television used to go downward. When the vertical used to go on the old TVs. When Mulrooney was on, his chin would go down to the corner. So my brother and I used to watch Mulrooney, and we always used to laugh and cheer, and we didn't know much about it, but that's going back quite a long ways.
Right. That's 84.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And how old were you then?
Oh, geez, 6 or 7.
Right.
I was a boy. I just, you remember things like that.
What kinds of things did you do as a kid in Blackville?
Salmon fishing. Played fast pitch.
Right on the river?
Right on the river, yeah.
Right.
Fished a lot in Bartholomew, Dungarvan, Cairns River as well. Fished in the Grey Rapids, Howard Road, all those areas.
These are not the best kept secrets of New Brunswick, but certainly some of the most beautiful parts of New Brunswick.
Oh, Miramichi is beautiful.
Yes.
All those rivers are gorgeous. All of them, Cairns, Bartholomew, Dungarvan, Renews. Bartholomew was always my favorite because I lived so close to it and fished it so often. But,
so you were fly fishing in the Miramichi watershed?
Yeah.
For salmon?
Absolutely. My dad was a guide and an outfitter, and he taught me how to fish with a dry fly first, which is supposed to be harder, but I always found it harder fishing with a wet fly, because with a dry fly, you're doing so much casting and so much work, where wet fly is more controlled, and
right.
I liked fishing with the bomber.
This is right out of Field and Stream kind of stuff, isn't it? This is the stories that they used to publish about kids growing up in the backwoods area and enjoying being outdoors all the time.
Absolutely.
What did you do in the wintertime?
Played hockey.
On the river?
Yeah, some. Mostly on the Blackville outdoor rink. And I started playing organized competitive hockey when I was about 13 or 14. And still play. Still, I coach.
Who
these
did you
days.
have as heroes?
Russ Courtnall.
Okay.
Doug
Vancouver,
Gilmore.
Toronto?
Yeah.
Right.
Bill Ranford. Massier.
Hartford Whalers, is that right? Or was Ranford with the Whalers?
He was an Oiler.
An Oiler. Okay.
I like my family were Leaf fans and Canadians fans, but we all cheered for the Oilers because of, Gretzky and all those boys.
Nothing like a Saturday night of
like
Montreal, Toronto on TV.
Absolutely.
About the time that you were becoming a teenager, television changed in the Miramichi. We suddenly moved to a bigger channeled universe. We didn't just have 3 channels in New Brunswick, and
yes.
Cable and satellite came in, so you got a much bigger perception of the world.
Yeah, back in those days it was CHSJ and CBC, and we had a couple of channels.
Right.
3 channels. Yeah.
Right. ATV and
ATV. That's right.
ATV, which was at one time Lionel TV, wasn't it? Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
You're much too young to remember that.
I just remember the Canard restaurant would always have those commercials on. See you after the game, and the guy was preparing the Chinese food, and it always used to just crack me up that the restaurant in Chatham was on TV, and it was local TV. But like I say, we all watched the hockey games.
The power of the media. Advertising absolutely works.
That was it. Yes.
Yes, that's
Everybody
right.
ate there after that.
That's for sure. Ball teams, hockey teams that were traveling in had to go to the Canard.
Absolutely.
Well, it worked for them.
It totally did. Yeah.
So what about high school? You finished high school and then
Yep.
Where did you go?
I went to St. Thomas and I studied sociology and history. And I moved around. I lived in Maine for a while, and I studied education later while in Maine. I went to South Korea for a couple of years and taught English and worked in New Brunswick in construction and in tourism, fishing. I was a guide, a fishing guide, many summers, and some great experiences with a lot of, mostly UK, England, Scotland. I had a lot of fishermen in from those areas for a couple of years, and yeah, I had a lot of great experiences on the river. Love it there.
And no doubt you've read that fabulous trilogy, The Americans Are Coming.
Oh yes, I've read.
Is it called the Brennan Siding
not
trilogy?
For
I think.
quite a while, but yes,
Yeah.
I know those guys very well, like personally. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Curtis brothers.
Right.
Yeah.
They're from your area.
Oh yeah, they're from Howard Road and from right close to home. So.
In 1,000 different ways, Jake, you're just the quintessential New Brunswick guy. You worked here for a little while. You went to Korea. There's 60 kids come out of St. Thomas every year, and unfortunately in the education program, and unfortunately there aren't 60 new teaching jobs, and half of them go to Korea or China.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do very well there.
Just exactly.
Are we putting out too many teachers?
Well, there's an argument there. You know, teaching is still one of the greatest professions. My wife is a teacher, and I mean, you're always teaching. I coach baseball and hockey and try to teach what I can still with that, but I don't know. I think our education system, sometimes we focus the money in the wrong places, and sometimes the focus gets turned on to we need more money when actually we spend a lot, and we just need to get better results, I think is the issue we have with education.
Right, right. So like most kids in the Miramichi, there's an automatic connection for you with St. Thomas University. There's obviously a number that have connections to UNB. Or Mount Allison too. That some of them go the other way. Yeah,
there's quite a few with St. Thomas, UNB, and Mount A. Certainly St. Thomas, where it was historically in Chatham. Right. There's a big there's a bond there with the people to St. Thomas, I would say.
There's something magical, isn't there, about the connection with the people in St. Thomas?
There really
is. They know
is.
Everybody, and they know. I was there for a little while, and Father Martin used to walk down and say, "Hi, Mike, how's it going?" You know, when even Father Martin knows you. You either are doing something right or something very wrong.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I ask, are we turning out too many teachers in all seriousness? Maybe, you know, the universities get a lot of money from the provincial dollar, and maybe there just are not enough teaching jobs, and we need to cut that back.
I have a lot of friends who are teachers, fully licensed teachers, and some of them never found employment, and the reason is exactly what you're saying today. There just aren't enough jobs for them. So I guess there's two sides to that. A, we're graduating too many, or B, do the ones taking the program realize that they could very well be going elsewhere for employment? So that's the other side of it.
And a number of them go to Calgary and...
I think a lot of them know. I mean, you would have to know today. Like in 2017, I mean, you know today there's not going to be a huge surplus of teaching positions at the end of the year. So my guess is students probably know they're leaving here, which is unfortunate.
Right.
Which comes right back to your question, and I'm not sure of the perfect answer on that.
Of course, the universities are cringing when I say that there's too many teachers.
Well, they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're hating me already. We'll get mail.
Well, you'll get mail for this. Right. Okay.
So going to Korea, how was that? That must have been a fabulous experience. You'd have been one of the few teaching English there amongst a population that you'd be right down to the basics of please and thank you and pass the salt over.
My wife and I went there at the time, and we liked it there. I made good friends with some Korean people and played baseball in a Korean men's league. And I had the time of my life. Those were great years. I mean, we would do some traveling to Thailand and Japan, Italy. Saw a bit of the world. No regrets there. You know, it's certainly a special time. And I still keep track of some of the foreigners like myself who happen to be living there, as well as some of the locals that I had made friends with while there. So.
You'd make a great minister of tourism now, wouldn't you, if the government changes? Here's a chance for you to promote New Brunswick. Let's take a trip to Korea, and I've got some friends in Thailand. We're going to sell our products there.
Maybe. I know. I never thought about that before, but yeah.
The Miramichi, one of the most beautiful areas of New Brunswick, and yet really such a tragic story. The Air Force Base closed, the pulp mill in Newcastle closed, Heath Steel closed. Just time and time again, we hear of these things that thousands of jobs lost, and well-paying jobs, union jobs,
Yeah.
jobs that have a long-time repercussion in the community. Blackville manages to survive in spite of the lack of opportunities that are there. There's the prison.
Yeah. The prison is in Renews, just a few miles, from the city, from the municipal limits of Blackville. Blackville was largely a one-horse town, similar to Boys Town and other communities along the trail.
Sure.
Blackville had 4 or 5 mills in the early 1900s, but as you moved along to early 1970s, they were down to 1. And by the time they got to 2007, it closed. So
And was that just inefficiencies, or was it forced out by the economics of other organizations?
Well, there was a downward spiral, sort of almost worldwide. But I think Blackville's mill was closed by UPM, by UMO Solar, and the allocation was divvied up amongst a few other companies forever for the long haul, and the mill was a lot of it was stripped by like copper and electrical components, and no, it's a really sad story for the village because Blackville never rebounded from that because that's all we ever had.
Right.
And I think everybody in Blackville would want the mill to run tomorrow morning if that were a possibility, and there's some that suggest it still could be, and I like to think that there's still a chance too. But I think overall, we just need a new vision, and I think we have a new council now. We're seeing some new ideas, so I'm optimistic about that.
So what does the Miramichi need, specifically Blackville? What does Blackville need? You were telling me that salmon and snowmobiles bring in an awful lot of money.
Yeah, the salmon industry and the snowmobile industry bring in, $45 or $50 million, and a lot of that would be
I didn't realize it was that high.
That's combined, and
Right.
a lot of that would be felt in Miramichi. Both of those industries are predominant these days. One of the things the region needs is the pellet mill proposed by Ross Creelman of the former Marwood. He owned the Marwood companies.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good project. It's called Northern Energy Solutions.
So this takes elements of wood that have been ground down and
Yep.
mixed with some sort of a glue base.
It takes biomass and basically makes an industrial pellet that gets sold on the European market.
Right.
And there could be options for domestic pellets too.
Certainly enough wood
Oh,
in that whole watershed
we have
basin.
so much biomass in New Brunswick, and if we don't use it, it just rots.
Right.
But so there's opportunity there. Now that mill would be in Newcastle, but it's very close to Blackville, and it would still be a good source of employment. But like I say, the region, Miramichi, has forever been trying to rebound. They're trying. I mean, there's been some good. Like Arbeck Forest Products is a good initiative. The former Weyerhaeuser mill that's running now along the river. I seen where Cormer Defense is going to be having a job fair, so that's great news. That was announced a few years ago.
And where will that be?
That's in Chatham,
Right.
on the Chatham side. Where
At the old air base.
it's at the old beverage company. I'm trying to think of the name. I can't think of the name. I'm sorry right now, but it's an old beverage company. It's near Route 11.
Okay.
So that's going to be a good job. It's in the national defense sort of industry, and they would bid on contracts,
Right.
but they would be good paying jobs. So that's good. That's good for Miramichi as well. But we really
And then there's the payroll business
center.
over there,
They've had
which-
their issues.
which is certainly in the news every day.
Yeah, and people are really, Miramichiers are really upset about that because Miramichiers feel that it's bringing a bad view on the river when this program that was installed by the federal government.
This new Phoenix payroll system. it's
Yeah,
called, right?
nobody could have imagined how much trouble it could have caused. But it's technology and it's new and this is our world. But I think that it's giving Miramichiers are not happy because they would like to go back to a system that they could easily work and utilize. And like I say, it's caused a bit of hardship, just all the bad publicity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Besides salmon and besides snowmobiles, is there some possibility that is there a magic bullet? Is there a magic solution that could say, look, let's put this together?
I think there's something missing. And I'll tell you, as a Miramichier, Miramichiers believe at their core that we can and should be doing more in relation to forestry. Now, Doketown has the 2 JDI mills. Chatham has Arbeck. But other than that, the ground mill, the plywood mill, those are gone, Blackfoot mill, Coulter mill. And I mean, they've been out of business now for 8, 9, 10 years. But there's still a lot of allocation. There's a lot of wood left in the province. And Miramichiers have it, it's entrenched in them, the ability to work with wood. So the labor force is always there. And the trucks, the people that worked with the skidders, and the expertise is always there. It's almost like Miramichiers don't even need training when it comes to some of these things. That's
Right.
probably not the best way to put it, but they can just, where it goes to forestry, they can play.
Yes.
They can perform. So the public would like to see another mill in Miramichi City. They'd like to see the pellet mill in Newcastle, and that would be foster some employment.
In 30 seconds or less, can you tell me, do you think, is it the vision of a local council? Is it the connection with the MLAs? Is there something connected with engineering and scientists at universities, something that'll bring that together?
I think the chamber and the city councils and the mayors, I mean, they're all working really hard. But I'm in opposition now, so I'm not as close to everything. So my hope is they're all working really close-knit to try to make it happen. But if a university could help out.
We're going to cut you off, and we're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Jake Stewart is our guest this evening on Voice of the Province. We'll be back with segment number 2, and we welcome your phone calls. Welcome back to Voice of the Province. I'm Mike Gange, and our guest tonight is Jake Stewart. He's the MLA for Blackville. Now, Jake, you're determined you're going to get me shot. Usually it's the members of the opposition that are shooting arrows at the government. You're determined you're going to get me shot, but you wanted to add something else about universities, and I wonder whether we have too many teachers out there. And in all honesty, I'll tell you, I had a 32-year teaching career, and I went to St. Thomas, so I'm very proud of that, but are we turning out too many teachers?
There's definitely an argument that we are, and I mean, what do you say to someone that's gone to school their whole life and is passionate about teaching? They could be the best teacher we've ever had in their profession. But I guess my question is, do they already know that?
Right.
I wonder, because it's still their choice to take the program. You know, when you took a program in the 70s and 80s and 60s, I've talked to so many teachers, they always said that teaching jobs were aplenty. You could literally choose from maybe a couple, if you're lucky, certain decades. But today it's not there. So my question is, do they already know that? Because as a province, with enrollment declining, it's hard to make the argument for more teachers, I guess. You know, so that makes it more.
And you know, when you look at some of our New Brunswick people, some of our fine journalists, Sir Alden Nowlin was a pretty good teacher, rough-spoken and poorly educated as he was, still wrote a lot of things that shaped a lot of people's lives as a teacher. I understand that Sidney Crosby finished high school, but was a fabulous teacher at the hockey schools when he was teaching.
Mike Babcock is a teacher.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's the Toronto Maple Leafs coach.
And he's probably the best thing that ever happened to the organization.
In the last little while, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, the pharmacists limit how many people can practice pharmacy, and they very wisely control that. And I wonder whether teachers need to do that too. There's 14 institutions in the Maritimes, and 7 of them offer teachers programs.
Yeah.
Let's not spend all night talking about that.
No, it's an interesting question.
But
and there's
who
a
would have
couple
been
of
an
sides.
inspiration for you that would have led you to something like that?
There were not a lot of teachers in my immediate family. I had a few teachers that I definitely learned a lot from growing up. Lori Brophy was one of them. She was great. She managed to teach me chemistry, and I actually got a good grade. So that was good. Science wasn't my strong point until I met her. But no, I had some inspirations growing up. Big fan of Muhammad Ali. Always a big fan of him. And like I say, John Lennon, the Beatles. I'm into music too. So there's a lot of people through the years that sort of gave me some inspiration.
Right. You're not just a pretty face, as they say in the Miramichi.
I don't know. Yeah.
So you ran for the leadership contest.
Yep.
How did you make out?
I finished 5th out of 7. I had about 700 votes, a little more maybe, and it put me about 100 and some odd votes shy of making the cut. You had to finish in the top 4 to make it into the round 2. So,
how did that affect you?
that was the only disappointment that I had, because I really knew that I was in tough. I was the youngest. I was rural. I was kind of an underdog. I didn't have a satellite polling station in the region, so I had that to work with. And, there were definitely some obstacles, but I had a great friend, Dr. Jim Parrott, former heart surgeon and MLA, and he called me every day for at least a year and a half and told me I needed to do it. And I have no regrets, none at all, and I learned a lot, learned so much actually.
Do you think that advanced your knowledge of the political process?
Absolutely. Because what it taught me, the public is tired of partisanship. They're tired of patronage. They're tired of corporate subsidies and welfare, whatever you want to call it. They're tired of just not knowing what the government is doing. And it's not so much, well, who's PC or who's liberal. It's more, who's representing me and what are they doing? What are they doing to help us as a community or I represent Southwest Miramichi, Bay to Vin, huge riding, takes from McGivney to Scumanak. So, I have a lot of rural issues there. But I found in going across the province, everybody was saying the same thing. Didn't matter where I went. The terminology might have been a little different from city to urban to rural, but it was the same message. Everybody in New Brunswick wanted the same things. Everybody. They just wanted New Brunswick to run, more like a business and to have, good ethics in government and equality and just the things that we need as a province.
Ultimately, the PC leadership was taken by Blaine Higgs.
Absolutely.
That's kind of his mantra, isn't it? Let's run New Brunswick like a business.
Yeah, I believe he said that. He said that a lot. And him and I actually share some views. I ran on an ethics platform, and he would have ran on accountability and transparency, which it all flows together.
Sure.
So he ran a good campaign. And there were a lot of nights, like you're on the same stage with these people.
7 altogether. That's quite a crew.
7 of us, and we're at universities, we're in northern New Brunswick, we're in cities, we're in town halls, we were thrown on a lot of stages. There were a lot of cameras, a lot of people taping us, everything's out there. There was a bit of pressure that came with that, but at the same point, you began to respect them all by the end of it. We all respected each other by the time it was over, even if there might have been, the odd disagreement or somebody different on a policy or something like that. But by the end, people were, that guy's a good guy. He's a good performer. She did a good job. We were all we got along really, really well. By the end, we just became friends.
Right.
And Blaine was number one a lot of nights in the debate, because even the nights I felt that I was really, really strong, and my team would say, Jake, you were really good tonight. So was Blaine, though. So he was always in that discussion, which to me says he earned it.
Our tradition in New Brunswick is a government for a term, maybe 2. Typically it's been 2. Yep. Sometimes it's been 1. we're bound to change, and if you stick around long enough, what for you would be the ideal job when it becomes a PC government?
Well, certainly.
I say Minister of Tourism.
You say Minister of Tourism. Well, you know, I've been the. I mean, obviously, I'm 38 years old. I still got lots of energy and still learning. You know, still getting better at the job. But if I look at portfolios, it's always, I mean, it's going to be up to Blaine, obviously.
Of course.
You know, he's the boss, so if he wins, he gets to pick that stuff. And I think.
And we're, of course, we're just crystal ball. We're just pie in the sky. What if?
I like energy and mines because
Right.
I've been at it for a while. I really like Aboriginal affairs. And I think that I would be good at that because of my relationships with some chiefs and some friends in Metapanagia and Eel Ground and some of the neighboring communities. I've always had a good understanding and be able to work well with First Nations people. So I mean, some of those, healthcare is an animal, but it's interesting. You know, that would be the ultimate test for sure for anybody. But like I say, it's hard when you look at ministerial roles because I mean, I studied history. There's no minister
and
of history.
sociology, I heard you
And
say.
sociology,
Right.
Absolutely. And there's no minister of those departments. So I mean, I've been at Energy and Mines now for 2 years, and Energy and Mines was a far stretch from anything I had studied or really worked at. So for me, it was a lot of work and a lot of you know, trying moments to try to understand everything that comes with that. But it's grown on me after a while, and I think I could do a good job at that at this point. But
Right.
but yeah, that's for another day, I guess.
Right. There's been many colorful MLAs from your area, from Blackville all the way to Escuminac, Bay to Vin. That's a huge section. You must put a lot of miles on the car.
Yeah, I put on about 50 to 60,000 a year, depending on the year. Last year, I would have put.
And arguably not the best roads in New Brunswick.
No, no, we have a lot of chip seal, and it's not good for your car. I would
Right.
go that far.
So who are some of the people that you remember? Tanker Malley?
Norm Betts.
Norm Betts,
I remember
right.
Norm Betts well. He's from Doketown, just above Blackville. Rick Brewer was there before me. Morris Green, and of course Tanker.
Morris Green is legendary, isn't he?
Yeah, he's well respected. He was
Yes.
there for a while. Tanker Malley.
Minister of the Environment.
He was Environment or DNR. I think he might have been DNR.
I see. Right.
Got to think about that. But Tanker, a friend of mine, his father was Paul Dawson.
Right. Who was
I-
also a teacher
Yeah,
out there at the base.
that's right. Yeah, he was. People still talk about him. People still talk about Paul Dawson and some things he did to help with softball and a few other things in the region. He gets talked about quite a bit still. So I mean, I guess we were all colorful.
Right.
From Miramichi. I think
And there
that's
was another guy built a hospital and united the community. Frank something.
Frank McKenna.
Of course.
He's remembered.
I knew his name.
Yes, he's definitely remembered in those parts for sure.
Right.
I didn't mention him because sometimes he wasn't from Miramichi, and I thought that's what you meant.
But he was the MLA for Chatham.
Oh, he was for a decade or more, actually. He was there for at least a decade and a couple of years before he was premier. So
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
lived there.
So lots of big names and lots of things to live up to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
In the leadership, you must have spent a lot of money, and it must be very difficult to have to go hat in hand and say to people, "This is where I am,
Yeah.
and would you please support me?"
That part was tough. I mean, I didn't have the outreach and the connections to, you know, the people outside of the region, so that made it tough too. I was more of I'd been in politics for a while, but I was one of the younger ones and in the backbenches the first time, so that made it a bit tougher. But we got by. You know, we made it to the end, and we're able to cover everything. So.
And I dare say it helped your credibility as an MLA now to say, I'm willing to stand up on various issues.
Oh, absolutely.
Do
I
people
mean,
treat you differently as a result of this?
it seems like people. Yeah, I mean, as the MLA, you never really know, but some people tell me, you know, people were proud of what I accomplished. So I mean, that feels good.
Right.
You know, so I guess I guess my way of answering it is I'm more equipped now to represent my people than ever before.
Right.
Because of all of that experience. And
Great professional development.
absolutely. Met with so many people, and I had some really, really good advisors, some exceptional ones, and some that I can't name because it was just, they were just being friends, and some of them are older and out of the system. And like I say, I met some good people, some smart people. And
Absolutely.
yeah, really learned a lot. And
That's our strength here, isn't it?
I have
700,000 people, and we all know each other.
Oh, absolutely. And I have no regrets. None at all.
Right.
Like, absolutely.
7 people's a number, a huge number to have as a political leadership.
It is.
There's 13 now running for the federal party leadership. Are you going to get involved in that in any way?
Well, I've been asked by, a camp or two, and I had been following along the Maxime Bernier and Scheer and some of them. I took a look and I listened to what they're saying, but I haven't really joined a team. I haven't joined one, and there's a couple of them that I like, but I'm not on a team at present. I didn't really have time with the leadership campaign,
Right.
and we got thrown right back into the assembly. So and then it was Christmas. So everything's moving so fast, I never really had time to get involved in it.
Do you understand better what they're going through with that number of candidates trying to raise money and crossing the country and the debates and
I think
things
they're on a
going
much
through?
bigger scale.
Of course.
I think in New Brunswick, the obstacle is everywhere you go, it's a 3-hour drive or 4 in the car. So,
Sure.
And then it's 3 or 4 to get back. And so you spend so much time in the car when you're doing a provincial campaign. So you got to, they're probably using airplanes for a lot of it, because they're doing countrywide. So it'd be interesting to know their struggles, but I really don't have much experience with the federal side. So I'm guessing they're dealing with a lot more even again than we did on the provincial level.
Now, a candidate has just come forward in the PC race, Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
Dragon's Den, no
Yeah.
one to be bombastic, no one to be outspoken. Is he Canada's Donald Trump?
Well, there's a lot of people in the public that want to portray him as Donald Trump or the Canadian version of it, but I don't know. I mean, I really just don't know. I've seen him on, the Dragon's Den. I've
Right.
watched that, and he's tough.
And that Lang and O'Leary exchange on CBC as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I can remember if I've seen that or not, but I read about it today. I heard something about it, but I don't know. I mean, I think this country and this province has been crying for a while for somebody to come along who was a true leader. And sometimes a true leader comes in different forms. And maybe it's not the personality you're looking for, but maybe they can do the job. And maybe they can do the best job. But it's just a personality thing that gets people worked up. And I've seen a lot of negativity about him today, and then I've seen a lot of positivity as well. So I really don't know what to make of that at this point.
Right.
I'm going to keep paying attention to it. And
What do you think of the leadership of Mr. Gallant?
Gallant, he's failing New Brunswick. He seems to be running the province by the seat of his pants. It doesn't really seem like he has a plan. And each and every time he gets into hot water, it seems like either they, spend a whole lot of money in the area where there's the problem, or they flip-flop and go back to, what the public wanted. And a lot of catering to special interest groups, and I really think he's doing
That
it.
sounds like a failing mark on your part.
Oh,
Let's
it is.
switch to, we've got a phone call from Anthony. Anthony is in Moncton. Hello, Anthony, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Great to have you here.
Yeah, my thoughts on the current government there. I think they could be doing better. I mean,
Anthony, quick, get to your question.
do you think they should be helping out? Their government should be helping more of our own people out rather than bring other people into the country.
So Anthony's question was, do you think we should help our own people rather than be bringing in many of the people coming to immigration. You're probably not going to have all the time you want to answer that. Anthony, would you do us a favor, please, and not go away? We're going to keep you on the line.
Okay.
And we're just about to go into a break, and I'm going to ask Jake Stewart to come back when we come back to address that question.
Sure.
You're joining us, ladies and gentlemen, on Voice of the Province. Our guest is Jake Stewart, and we'll be back in just a moment with the answer for Anthony's question. And on the line, we've got Anthony. You'll see the phone number up on your screen in just a moment. Anthony asked a question that said, do you think we need to do more for local New Brunswickers versus bringing in immigrants? Anthony, did I phrase that question correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So, Jake, over to you.
I think, Anthony, what I would say is that although the country has always brought in a lot of immigrants, and we seem to be known for that around the world, and a lot of people in Canada are comfortable with it, and a lot of people are not. It depends on who you're talking to. One of the issues we have in New Brunswick is that we have to focus on the people more. Like you said, when the government gives $40 million to a failed shipyard or starts throwing money at Sears and companies and large corporate subsidies, when you have people in small communities that are not getting what they need from the government, I think that's where government has to stop catering to large corporations and special interests and focus more on the people of New Brunswick.
That's great. Thank you, Anthony, for your call. The phone number's on the screen, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd like to hear from you. This is Voice of the Province. Jake Stewart is our guest this evening. We keep talking about what can we do in New Brunswick, and you've just alluded to some money going out. The Office of Developing New Brunswick, I think, is it called ONB?
Yes.
Giving some money to Sears works out to about $20,000 a job. How do you feel about that?
We shouldn't be paying for Sears to hire people.
What can we get in return that's going to be a guarantee that those jobs are going to stay and that investment is going to be well deserved?
We didn't get any guarantee, and Opportunities New Brunswick was in committee these past 2 days, and they were not even forthcoming with information. So basically, when you've got corporations that are accepting the public's money, they should also have to have public scrutiny. The public deserves to know what's in these deals and what's in it for the public. Now, I believe there's some evidence out there to suggest that Sears will be closing more of their businesses here in the province. And I mean, is that area one of them? That's a
180
question.
jobs is a windfall for Edmundston area that, like the Miramichi, needs jobs badly. So this is a bonus for them.
The jobs are,
but
we're paying for them.
Right.
So that's that fine line, you know. And the current government has made a history of saying, you know, they're creating jobs, but they're doing it with your money and our money and the public's purse. So I mean, is it really job creation when you're paying using the public's money to buy every job?
Do you think Sears should have to go to this committee and say these are the jobs we're going to bring into the? You said. Opportunities New Brunswick
That would be
was
nice.
in committee hearings at the legislature. Do you think Sears should have to have a representative there to say this is what we're intending to do?
Potentially, but I think if Opportunities New Brunswick could provide the contents of the deal, because the public now just believes it's a secret deal, which, you know, like the public deserves better. It doesn't matter who the government is or which party it is, which color the tie is. The public deserves to know when, what, why, how. It's their money. That's where the issue is.
Okay, so another issue on this is that ONB representatives were not answering questions. They were not forthcoming. I can't tell you the answer, or I won't tell you the answer. I can't recall exactly the wording.
I won't.
I won't tell you the answer. What can we do about that? These are public servants.
We have to change the rules. We have to have ethics. We have to have accountability. We have to have transparency, and we can't have secret deals.
Now, what you're talking is a whole cultural shift.
Yes.
It's not going to be easy to obtain.
No, it's not, but I'll tell you, we spend $250 million annually. It's a mug's game. It's a complete race to the bottom because we're taking the public's money and throwing at things like the Caracat Shipyard and Sears, and I could go on. There's endless amounts of this. And then what you get is the public doesn't know what's happening, and then all of a sudden you got like what happened with Atcon. It just blows up. and then the public's still wondering what went wrong. And I mean, this is why governments make such bad decisions, because the public doesn't have the proper way to scrutinize them. And if an opposition MLA, who's a member of the Legislative Assembly, is not able to acquire the contents of a public deal where public money is being used, that's not right. And it's not fair to taxpayers. And I was really disappointed with what Opportunities New Brunswick did by not answering. And I think they should come ahead and come forward and come clean on every deal they've made so that the public can view those contents.
These are civil servants, are they not? They're employees of the province of New Brunswick.
Yeah, well, it's taxpayers' dollars, of course.
Right, but Opportunities New Brunswick is, would they be a civil service job?
Basically, yeah, they're like a Crown Corporation, economic development agency.
So a deputy minister, when they go before committee, has to answer the questions delicately sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes with a little bit of finesse, but these people blatantly were not answering the
They
questions.
were not answering, and it's not uncommon.
How can we hold their nose to this?
We need legislation that protects the public purse, the public's interest. And companies that are coming back year after year, like some of these companies couldn't get money from the bank. I don't know about Sears. I'm just using this as an example. I mean, if you can't acquire the capital from the banks, then you're coming to the province. Then the province, or Brian Gallant and his government, is throwing corporate subsidies and handouts to large corporations, and the public doesn't even know the contents of the deal.
Right.
That's not right. No matter how you look at it, it's not right.
Right, I see.
And that can be fixed with better ethics and accountability and better legislation.
Okay, let's go to our next caller. Jack is on the air from St. Stephen. Hello, Jack.
Hi. Hello, Jake.
Hi.
Jake, I'd like to thank you for speaking up for average New Brunswickers. I wanted to ask you a question about the attack on rural New Brunswick that this government seems to be doing. Now, I tuned in late, so I hope I'm not repeating somebody else's comment or question, but I'm really concerned about the fact that we seem to be living in a feudal system here. All the new money that comes into the province basically comes in through rural New Brunswick, and we're about 48% of the population. And yet they keep moving all of the services out of rural New Brunswick into the large centers, and they don't seem to be willing to do anything to stop that. And what I'm really hoping is that your government, if they are elected, and I certainly hope they will be, if they will turn that around, or is there an objective to keep that going?
Yeah, no, you raise a very good point, Jack. And I mean, you said you were in St. Stephen?
Yes.
St. Stephen is a good example. I mean, if you look at that St. Croix constituency, the courthouse, OR closures at the hospital, Service New Brunswick's issues with ferry systems. I mean, rural New Brunswick has been heavily attacked by this government. And the problem is every time the government gets in hot water, it comes out and spends a few dollars or then tries to flip-flop. And some people suggest that the Finn report in some way is still being used by directing all the services to the bigger areas. And I agree with you. I mean, I'm a rural New Brunswicker, as you know, and I think that this government has really left rural New Brunswick out in the cold. And just recently, I met with some people who work for local service districts. They're telling me that the sporting and recreation aspect of the RSCs can now actually be forced upon neighboring LSDs. So I'll give you an example. If a municipality or city wants to build a big arena or some sort of aquatic center or something large, they could actually force, by the signature of the minister, they can force the LSDs that are close by to pay, I think it's $1.92 per $100 or something. I've seen some sort of, that's going to blow up. I mean, this is another aspect of where rural New Brunswickers are being basically told what they're going to do, whether they like it or not.
We just had another caller, Edward from St. John. Would you call us back, Edward? We seem to have a difficulty on that phone line. And Jack, is that, I think Jack is gone. So
to Jack's comment about the official opposition, Blaine Higgs was born in a very rural area. A lot of us are from rural areas, and we respect rural New Brunswick. We think there has to be a healthy balance between rural, urban, and cities, and the best thing we could do is work together. That's the way we're going to do it in New Brunswick. New Brunswick has to get together, and Blaine Higgs is the guy that's going to be able to do that.
here's a question that I almost always come to ask our guests. Do we have too many municipalities? You look at St. John, and there's a dozen of them down there, a dozen firefighters, a dozen firefighters and police, and Grand Bay and Westfield and St. John and I can't, Equispamsis.
Yeah.
Look at Fredericton. We've got New Maryland. We've got out the Hanwell community. Do we have too many of these municipalities? And maybe we need to say, and I don't think that would hurt the rural areas. Look, you've all got to be unified as the tax base locally and be able to have an adequate fire and protection. Ambulances are doing pretty well, but what do you think of that?
It depends on the communities. I mean, there's an argument out there that suggests we have too many. There's different reports that have been conducted over the past 25 years. Like in my constituency, the former municipality or village of Boys Town conjoined to make a rural community with all the nearby communities, and that seems to be working well for them. I think the hardest part for that, I mean, I'm not the expert on that per se, but if that is a better option, people are very much against it in rural New Brunswick. A lot of areas are really concerned that it's just another way for them to pay more taxes.
Right.
And that's a great fear out there. So until somebody in government or somebody with expertise can really talk with people around the province and prove to them that this is not what's going to happen, I think down the road there could be some changes, but the public has to buy into something like that.
Even in your area, the Miramichi has, Doketown, Newcastle, Douglas. I misspoke. Douglastown, Newcastle, Chatham Head, all of those, Logieville, all those areas seem to have their own community identity, and it's taken a full generation before people accept them as a city called Miramichi.
Well, that's right. I think that happened in 95 or 96. I was in high school at the time, but it's taken some time. I mean, I played softball in Nelson all my life, and they were like the town of Nelson.
Right.
And Nelson and Logieville and, Chatham Head,
right.
Newcastle, Douglastown, they're all together. But I think it's working better now. There were some tough periods, but you know what made it a city? I'll tell you. Do you know the answer to this?
I'm going to say it's a hospital.
No. Some people would say that, but that's not my opinion. My opinion, and this is shared by a lot of people, is that Jerry Cormier is the reason they became a city. That was their mayor for 2 terms.
I see.
Mayor Jerry Cormier, and he really brought that entire region together. And I think that although the hospital is definitely in that equation, no question, because at the time Newcastle and Chatham each wanted their own hospital, and I believe McKenna promised them both and then built one. But that hospital is a huge part of the river, there's no question.
Yes.
But I think the other side of it is Jerry Cormier.
Right.
Jerry Cormier really has brought that together, and he's gone now, and that's really sad for the region.
Personality driven then. Let's go to Edward from St. John. Hello, Edward. You're on the air.
Hello. I just wanted to say that, make a comment that Jake, you're doing a great job for your constituents over in Blackville area. Also, if I heard you right, I can't believe that these wingnuts give $20,000 to Sears and they're closing stores all over the country. They would better off to give it to the soup kitchens or the homeless or the street people. They're just wasting their money. What's wrong with these jokers anyway?
Ed, I think you're absolutely right. They gave $3.5 million to a company that's closing up shop in a lot of areas. It's not good economics for the province, and it's nothing against Sears. I mean, Canadians love Sears. They shop there, you know. We've all shopped there, but that's not the issue.
And there's many fine people work at those
Oh,
stores, to be sure.
absolutely.
We're not in any way denigrating them.
We're not downgrading Sears, and it's a good deal for Edmonton to have all these new jobs, but will they really last? I mean, you're spending the public's money on corporate subsidies to a large corporation that's starting to downsize its operations. I mean, that is not good business policy. It's not sound economics. And you have a government that's completely in campaign mode. So to them, they must feel this is going to bring them a lot of votes. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to look at it through their eyes.
Well, there's 180 votes in Edmundston that are going to be thinking certainly positively of the Liberal government.
Yeah.
I wonder why there isn't a negotiation that says, you know, if you're going to do this, then the government purse is going to hold some of the shares. And if there's a rebound in the shares, that rebound will come to New Brunswick as well.
That's a good point. That's one of the mistakes we make as a province. There's a lot of deals signed where there's not enough protection for the public. And we've seen that in so many deals that went sour over the past 10 or 15, 20 years. It's been going on forever. But I think this, you know, Ed raises an interesting point, giving money to soup kitchens. I mean, there's a lot of people struggling in New Brunswick. It's good for Edmundston to have an influx of jobs, but we're still paying for those jobs.
Yes,
so then there's another question. Is it legitimate job creation? The job creation we need is the job creation created by the private sector, but not at the expense of the taxpayers' wallets.
Right. And earlier, Jake, you said one of the things we need, to sum up a little bit, we need something that's personality driven, a good leader.
Yes.
We need something that's going to be bringing communities together.
That's right.
You've only got 20 seconds for your final word.
Well, is this the end of the show?
This is it.
Oh, okay. I didn't see you coming. Okay, listen. I had a great time being on here, and
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to New Brunswickers who are listening in tonight.
Our callers have included Anthony from Moncton, Jack from St. Stephen, and Edward from St. John. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been joining us on Voice of the Province. Our guest has been Jake Stewart. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon.